Hey, Blue Collar Millionaires, back again. We got Josh Zieglowsky today. A friend of mine, I met him a few years ago at a mastermind. We hit it off. Now we're in the deal maker together. He's going to tell his story. He's had probably of all the people I know in that probably had the biggest hockey stick growth. So he's going to talk about what he's done with his company. And Josh, thanks for so much for coming on today.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us where you started at and kind of where you currently are with your current business, and then fill us in on the hockey stick growth. What made it so successful?
Yeah, I always like to start kind of what my background is, and that's how I met Kevin. Is we were in a different mastermind together with Tim Bratz, and I still remember the time I met Kevin. We were just on the patio. He was sitting out there, and I just barely got to the house, and I didn't know anybody. And we and Kevin just started talking, and he was the first person I started talking with. And then, the thing about mastermind, it's always a good and bad thing. Sometimes you get a relationship with someone and you have a hard time going to meet with others because you have such great conversation. And so Kevin and I probably spent a couple hours talking and didn't really converse with other people for a while. But the reason being why we met is because my background's always been real estate investing, and I've been in commercial real estate. I was kind of the stepchild of that group, though, because I was the only one not doing multifamily, and it was very multifamily based. I've always done triple net stuff. I was looking to possibly do at the time maybe A class or B class multifamily. But I decided not to about a year later. So I've always done triple net stuff. I started with, multifamily. I always say that's the gateway drug of commercial real estate. And I did mobile home parks. I did C class hotels, like boutique hotels, until I learned triple net stuff. Then, bought some shopping centers, some medical offices, stuff like that. And then I was always a serial entrepreneur. I was a minority owner of an oil business for about a year and a half, 2 years. And in 2020, price per barrel dropped like negative $60 a barrel one day. And so I was always trying to find extra stimulus for our oil business out of Wyoming. I'm out of Utah, to help combat, to get us through this pandemic. There was even an article that came out that in 86 years, not every well was plugged in the state of Wyoming. That's never happened in 86 years.
Wow.
And so we were suffering pretty bad. We did PPP number 1, number 2, and even a state of Wyoming grant that was forgiven. And a friend of mine said, hey, you should take a look at this new program, the American Rescue Plan Act. President Biden amended. It's called the Employee Retention Credit. It started the exact same time as PPP. I then took a look at it. I then reached out to my CPA because it was done through the Treasury Department, AKA the IRS. And I reached out to my CPA, which is Robert Kiyosaki's CPA. The guy's name's Tom Wheelwright. He's wrote some books. His partner named Casey is who I was on the phone with. And I said, hey, I need some help with this. I want to get this for our oil business. And he was like, oh, man, you'll find out that 95% of CPAs don't do this, because they won't do it because we do your 1040s and 1120s. This is amending your 941 reports, quarterly reports. You should talk to your payroll company. Okay. So I reached out to ADP and Augusto. That's what I was using with 2 different separate companies. And both of them told me, sorry, we don't amend 941s. We just do your active returns. So you might need to just call a third party. Right then, it kind of hit me, was like, what, this might be an opportunity to help business owners with this, because back when the mortgage meltdown happened, so that's kind of previous to the pandemic, that was kind of the biggest, slide of the economy, right? Was the mortgage meltdown. When the mortgage meltdown happened, it was so hard to flip homes because you're buying a home for $100,000, then now you should have bought it for $60,000, 3 weeks later. It was dropping so fast. Well, I got into the loan modification business with an attorney, and we made a lot of money with that. Just kind of, segued into something that was kind of I knew it was a small wave for about a year or two. Ended up doing pretty well, but it was very cutthroat because it was non-refundable money. So I looked at this new ERC as maybe this opportunity, and so we started. But then, I co-founded it with a friend of mine, which obviously is my partner, Justin Atkinson. We started talking about it and said, man, this could be a huge opportunity. And at the time, there was no supply chain disruption. It was a straight 20% loss. I mean, the time that Kevin learned about ERC was pretty much our launch. It was in a living room in Las Vegas, Nevada, at an Airbnb. And it's one of those things of, starting in a garage and then turning into, now we have 220 employees, and we have, 20,000 affiliates nationally. So it's been a godsend. I'm very grateful for it, but I'm also grateful for all the businesses that we've been able to help. Like I literally had people in their memo sending us a cashier's check for $500,000 saying thank you.
Yeah.
They have no problem paying me $500,000 to help out their business.
That's insane. So something sticks out to me very quickly about you, Josh, because I didn't realize the story before with the mortgage crisis and how you jumped in, but you pivot very quickly. What is your secret sauce to be able to pivot? And here's not only pivot, like typically when someone pivots into a new industry or starting something new and creative, when they see a problem that no one's solved already, there is this ramp up period of just, putting the people into place, the learning curve of that process. But you've been able to pivot so quickly. It sounded like in the mortgage crisis and now with this ERC. How do you do that?
3 things come to mind. Tons of failures. That's number one. Tons of failures of trying businesses. That's the first thing, because I got a hard candy shell when it comes to starting a new business, knowing like, hey, if it doesn't do well, I'll see it to a point and I'll just move on to something else. So all the failures I've had in 25 years is one of the reasons. Next, I'd say is I didn't realize this till probably 3 months ago, but a lot of people know that book called Traction by Gino Wickman. He wrote another book called Rocket Fuel. I don't know if you guys have heard that or read that, but it talks about, in order to have a successful business, you need to have one of 2 people. You need to have a visionary. You need to have an integrator. For years, I was always trying to do both. I was always trying to do a visionary and integrator. This obviously had this huge growth. When you look back, I was the visionary and then Justin was the integrator, right? And he and I have talked about this in the last 90 days. And it's you don't realize it until it actually had this huge success. Like now every business, I need to make sure I have an integrator, whether that's Justin or someone else that's going to, want to go on this path with me. But I'm the visionary because I've gone through all these failures, but the thing is with those failures comes with the third thing I was going to say. Last week, my daughter, she's 10. We sometimes she'll ask me, hey, Dad, do you want to go in the hot tub? Like on 8 o'clock at night. So it was just me and her. We were sitting in the hot tub and she's never asked me this. And she goes, Dad, how do I start my own business? I'm like, wow. A 10-year-old asking me how she starts her own business. And I said, you know what? It's nothing about getting an LLC. She doesn't know what an LLC is. It's not a business plan. We need to worry about your getting through your fears, your fear of rejection, your fear of failures. And coming to answer your question, I think about those fears that I've gotten over with rejection, with failures. Like rejection, for instance, I talked about this yesterday with someone, is when I decided I'm going full bore with ERC, I literally copy and pasted. I had 2 texts. I had one for business owners that I copy and pasted, and I just sent it to. I went through all my A's in my contact list, all my B's, all my C's. But then I had another text for people that were employees of an employer, on how they can get me in front of their employer. I probably send out 300 to 400 texts over 2 days. I probably got a 5 or 10% response, and I had the mentality of Grant Cardone of the 10X rule, of what? I just need to text a lot more people.
Massive action.
5-10%. That means 90 to 95% of people rejected me.
Yeah.
And because of that, I succeed. It's kind of like what Michael Jordan says, the more failures I've had, I've succeeded from that. And that's kind of the reason why it makes it easy for me to kind of see a pivot, because I've seen so many different opportunities or failures to help me now get into something that, I think has good merit.
That's straight gold, man. So let's dive into, because I I think you're going to help a whole lot of our audience right now if we dive into this for a second, because I know with me, I started as a technician in the van and changing over. I read Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant, and I thought I was a business owner until I read a statement in there where it said, if you can't leave for 6 months and your business will stay steady and hopefully grow, then you don't have a business. You've got a job. Yeah. And it hurt my feelings. It hurt my pride. It hurt my ego. But it also put me in a position where I said, I've got to get to that point, because I don't want to be a solopreneur, because I knew what that meant. And I read the Rocket Fuel, and that was an enlightening book for me because it helped identify my strengths as a visionary. But when you're in that solopreneur making less than $1 million in revenue in a business, you do find yourself doing both. But it doesn't have to be that way. So talk to me what your visionary process looks like with the ERC, since that's your most recent business, and then what your integrator partner, what his roles kind of looked like in the process of startup to where you are now.
Yeah. So the visionary it was kind of collective with us, because we would talk. I mean, it was one of those 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week for 6 to 12 months. And there was also doubt. I mean, like anything when you're an entrepreneur, you have tons of doubt. Someone was saying something the other day of like, going from a W-2 employee to be an entrepreneur, they were probably 4 months in of like literally pulling the Band-Aid as W-2, but they had the doubt and they were thinking about going back,
Yeah.
I've even said over my entrepreneur career of 20 years, I was actually applying for jobs in the pharmaceutical rep space shortly after the pandemic, the mortgage meltdown, because I was like, you know what, maybe I should just go get a W-2 job, 80 grand a year, and I can move my way up and then have a corporate job for $300,000 to $400,000.
Yeah.
And I did several interviews, and a few of them would tell me that I was overqualified. And I was thinking like versus underqualified. Like it was so hard for me to hear that answer, and hear that response. But it was a blessing in disguise, And when I saw the vision with ERC was mostly seeing that, hey, we can make this automated. And the competition at the time was basically small CPA firms doing it manually. We even talked to a couple of them on the phone about doing just a joint venture, because we wanted them to tackle all the operations, but we kept on telling them things that we were envisioning as far as automation. They're like, there's no way you can do this like through automation. It's got to be, we got to talk to the customer. It's going to be a 30-minute consultation. We'll get all the data. We'll get back to them about in 6 to 8 weeks. And we're like, that's just not good enough for us, and we just continue to chip away. And people that were with us in the very beginning and now are with us still, definitely saw all those like new automations, because you're building a company that pretty much is going to last for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
You're not building a company for 10 to 20 years. So you're not making this rise of your IT side. You got to pick and choose, because it's going so fast, what you can implement for your company and your affiliates, in order to make it effective.
Josh, talk about Justin. Justin, for people who don't know him, he's the way he thinks, and he can break things down. That's so he figured out all this automation, right?
Oh yeah.
When I met him in Vegas, I came in one night and people were asking me about my business and everything, and asking me questions, and he was like zeroed in on questions, and he was breaking my business down right there. And I had a really interest. I was like, man, this guy is interesting. This guy is smart. He was thinking about things like really super advanced for a conversation that was only 5 minutes. So I love that you partnered up with him, because it would have never got there without him, right?
No.
So how did you automate this? And then what's your system as far as all these affiliates? Because that's the key to it as well, right? You have a lot of affiliates.
Yeah. How it really started, and this was, conversation Justin and I had a lot in the very beginning, is maybe spending some money on some marketing. And we looked at doing that. We did we did some Facebook stuff, but we just noticed it was a relationship sell. We saw that it needs to be if I have a relationship with a plumber, I can be an affiliate and then talk to them, and we could pay that affiliate a marketing fee, basically, right? And not pay for marketing. And really, it's just the voice talking with them. Then we kind of backed up and we said, okay, we also, the crappy part of this program is it does take 6 months, 8 months for the money to be sent from the IRS. We can't even pay that affiliate for 6 or 8 months. We even looked at opportunity of like, what if we put a lot of different money in and we could pay them a little bit of advance? We said, we don't even know if, to be honest, we didn't even know if the IRS is going to send out the money. You know, it was very early for us. And so we just said, hey, let's just work on people that we can, hey, we'll do all the work. And in 6 months, 9 months, you know, hopefully we get paid and we can pay you and then we can pay us, right? So we took this huge leap. There were so many unknowns because you can't just call the IRS and say, hey, can we schedule a meeting with you guys and go over this program? Dude, we tried that. We tried every different way. I mean, I live in Utah, and one of the hubs for the ERC is in Ogden, Utah. I have been down there at least a dozen times in different angles trying to find the right person. There's no right person. You know, they keep this big wall and they continue to put out notices, and you're like, okay, can I at least talk to someone? There, you can't talk to anybody. So, so we knew that, you know, all these different factors, the affiliate like network was going to be our biggest thing. When I was early 20s, and I think a lot of us has done like multi-level marketing, that was kind of the mindset there is like, hey, what if we just have affiliates that we can go wide, you know, and they can work. We want them to work their leads. We don't want a guy up here that has 9 levels deep that's making money. We didn't want to do that. We want to say, if you're going to work and you're going to talk to customers, you're going to get paid pretty good on it, you know? And so that was kind of the relationship or the idea that we had. In addition to, you know, I remember this one time I was probably in my mid-20s, early 20s. I was a marketing representative for a building company, and we did marketing. And I remember the guy, when we were a startup, he was like, I can't wait till the day that all you guys are coming and driving in the parking lot. Look out the parking lot, and you guys all have like really, really nice trucks and cars. And I always thought that's pretty cool. So our goal is to create the most 100 people that made $100,000 or more, hopefully in history, you know. And we've done pretty well with people that have made, you know, 6 figures or more in this.
That's I think it was brilliant. I'm sitting here trying to think how I got my affiliate link, because that was the only way to get up to you guys, is because I applied for my company because I heard somebody, I believe it was the Butler brothers through a Capitalist Cartel. I was part of their mastermind. I did that link, saw it was successful, and I believe that I was able to get a link through them. So did it tear down like an MLM does as far as the affiliates?
So the way we did at the very beginning, it was just one level. And then about 2-3 months go by, and we had a lot of people. It's like, hey, I talked to my CPA and he wants to send you his whole client base. That's 200 customers. I mean, can I get a little bit of referral fee on that? And so at the first we said, no, sorry, we're not equipped for that. But then over about the 2, 3, 4 week period, we had that a lot. So we went back to the third-party service we were using called First Promoter. And we just said, hey, can we have a second level at 5%? That they can at least get a little bit of referral, but we don't have to track it manually, because we want to do everything on a scalable business.
Right.
So that was the reason. So technically it's 2 levels.
Yeah. That makes sense. I've really been amazed at how widespread you've got, which, you know, you got other companies popping up now because they see, hey, this is a thing, and this is going to be short-lived and there's money to be made on it. So we can help others. Well, it's one of the easiest sales I've come across. For sure. Because you're helping people get money that they deserve for retaining employees. So it's not like you're trying to sell them and asking for money from them. You're giving money to them.
Yeah, we call it newfound money. And even with our pivot, you know, Justin and I were at lunch yesterday with a friend of mine, and that also sold a software company for millions of dollars. And the one thing we talked about is our pivot. We have about 3 or 4 main products that will be newfound money again, that it'll actually be bigger than ERC. So, you know, people that are actually affiliates already, it's going to be something that we're launching mid-summer to late summer. That's going to be pretty awesome.
That's amazing. So tell us what ERC is.
So ERC in the pandemic, there was something called the PPP loan. That was a loan that was forgiven later. ERC started the exact same time as PPP, but you could only get one or the other. Then fast forward in March of 21, President Biden amended the CARES Act and made it so you could do, if you got PPP, you can now get ERC. And at the time, you used to have, the questions were 500 employees or less. If that answer is yes, the next question was, did you have a 20% revenue loss, comparing your 2019 quarters to your 21 quarters? And that's how we started the business, just talking to people that, maybe got PPP number 2, because PPP number 2, you had to have a 25% loss in order to qualify. Mm-hmm. So we just talked to people like, hey, did you get PPP number 1 or 2 or both? Oh, both. Oh, you should look at this. That was the easiest way to get in the door, because we knew they pretty much lost money as well. Then fast forward to December of 21 is when it was amended 4 or 5 times in 21. But the last time the questions now are 500 employees or less. The next question is if the answer is yes, then did you have a 20% revenue loss, or did you have a supply chain disruption, or were you ever shut down partially or full based on a government mandate? If the answer is one of those 3, you could qualify. And that's why Forbes did an article in early 22 saying up to 80% of business owners actually qualify for this, yet 7 out of 10 don't even know about it. Once that happened, the barn door went wide open for us. We were already doing pretty well, but that ended up being huge, because they really wanted to maximize on the amount that they allotted for this, which was close to about $400 billion. And because at the time, they not even like 1/5, maybe 1/10 had been used at that time.
Wow.
So they wanted to make sure they maximize this from our what we've been told from tax attorneys and stuff. So then when that opened, it just opened up the door to helping a lot more customers qualify for it.
400 billion was set aside for this.
Yeah. 500 billion was put towards PPP. And like PPP was a loan that was forgiven later, and you had to specify what you're using the money for. This is not a loan. This is forgiven the day you get it, and you can use it for whatever you want in your business.
And it's up to 26,000 per employee that was retained during 6 different quarters out of, what was it? It was 2 in 2019 and 4 in 2020. Or did I get
3
that
and 3. So 3
and 3. Okay.
Yeah, quarters 2, 3, and 4 in 2020, and 1, 2, and 3 in 2021.
So I don't think people realize how good this is. You're a plumbing company or something, blue collar guy, you got 10 employees. You had one of those 3 things possibly. You do an application, you have an opportunity to possibly get 26,000 times 10, 260,000 minus the cost for you to set it up, and it's forgiven. It's not a loan. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's like a stimulus check for business.
Yeah. I tell people, do not pre-qualify yourself. Go on the website. We don't ask for a credit card, nothing. We charge 15% of what you get approved for. So we're trying to maximize it out, based on the data that we have on your quarters. And then from there, we have the waiting game from the IRS. There's nothing I can do about that for about 6 months for the checks to come to you. And then we settle up from there.
Yeah, it's I think my experience was about an 8-month delay, 15% paid on the back end. So I got the money, y'all invoiced me, paid you, paid the company, and a lot of people are like, that was exaggerated rate charged, and I said I wouldn't have had this money without them. Like, you've got a backwards way of thinking if that's how you're thinking about it. Yeah. It's incredible, and it's just like you Kevin stated. I mean, the plumbers. I would like for you to define the portion where you said supply chain disruption, because most people think, well, I wasn't able to get if it was the plumber, I wasn't able to get my PVC for my drain pipe, but that's not necessarily all supply chain disruption. Yeah.
There's people that their supplier was, coming overseas from China. It's not just they have that term, the crap rolls down the hill. Mm-hmm. It could be something that in that regard, it could be something that was delayed 8 to 12 weeks, like windows were delayed 8 to 12 weeks during 2021 in new construction. And obviously 21 and 22 was a huge appreciation piece in real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Even with the appreciation, there was a lot of building material that was delayed, The other part is in that case of a plumber, they might had a schedule to be there on, starting Monday for like 2 weeks to plumb the whole house out, but they were delayed because someone else's supply chain.
Right.
So that there's a whole thing. Was there a 10% nominal impact to your business? That's the term they use in order to get supply chain. The other thing is too, there's a lot of companies out there that are really hesitant about this because of CPAs. I always say like, hey, then go get a tax attorney. Because tax attorneys, they're the ones that, if you have an audit in your business, your CPA actually doesn't defend you. You have to go get a tax attorney. Well, tax attorneys write what they call opinion letters. It's going to cost the business about $3,000 or the person about $3,000. And it takes about 2 weeks, and they'll write this 30-page opinion letter. And 9 out of 10 ones that are submitted to tax attorneys from the data that we have are sent in. And when the IRS gets an opinion letter from a tax attorney, that because they've done extra certification with the IRS, it's almost like a rubber stamp of like, okay, sounds good. Someone actually made sure this was substantiated through a tax attorney service. And so if someone's still hesitant, I would encourage them. We have tax attorneys that we have as third parties, not that don't work for us. And then you can always get your own as well if you already have one, and then have them write an opinion letter for you before we submit it.
I love that. That's great that you mentioned that, because I've heard some other people show concern, and that's the answer.
Josh, I got a question. Can a new owner of an existing business that was in operation during those years apply for ERC?
Yes. So they have, there's two things. One of the questions, so part of our questionnaire, that's why I always encourage people to go through the questionnaire. It's going to ask, was your business started before February 15th, 2020 or after February 15th, 2020? If it's after, and it's technically before the third quarter in 21, you can get what they call a new business credit, which is up to $100,000 for your business. Like my cousin, good example is his day job is he's a CEO of a major hospital where he lives in Wyoming. And he has a side business that he was repairing computer repairs, and he had supply chain, and he had a 20% revenue loss, but his business was started the end of 2020. We ended up getting him about $88,000 of new business credit. And he did, to be honest, because he has this mindset of like, I just don't think I can qualify. I'll do all this. I said, well, just do this. Go on there. You're my cousin. Apply for it. Let's wait 6-8 months and see. And this is early on when we started. So I was also like, I wasn't 100% confident that checks were coming yet, right? Because I hadn't seen one. And anyways, he ended up getting his checks and was like, wow, that's crazy. I wouldn't even thought that was even possible. So he's introduced us to his hospital and other clinics nearby from that.
So let's say that I didn't file for the ERC and someone came and bought my company, and there's opportunity for ERC credits. Can the new owner of my company file for them? Yeah.
So one of the things was talked about, because you guys know Kyle Malin. I don't know. Malin. One of the things that was talked about when I went down to the Austin event was like, hey, if I buy this, I'm buying this business right now, and how should I do it so he doesn't take the ERC money, because we're under contract. And I always first ask him, like, why don't you just ask them if they got government money, through the pandemic? A lot of them always said, oh yeah, PPP. Well, yeah, but did you get any other federal money? And so then they would negotiate in their contract, their buy-sell agreement of, hey, if there's any more government money that I can go apply for while you have the business, I get.
Yes.
And anyways, that guy negotiated it. Or another guy did like a 50-50 split if I find something, end up being ERC. And so this guy was buying a business for like $800,000 and ended up getting ERC money for like $600,000.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool.
That's insane.
Josh, how did you have 220 employees? And I mean, that was 2 years ago. We were in Vegas.
Yeah.
So how did you scale? How did you hire those people? Who's helping you hire those? That's a massive growth and hiring that many people.
So it started with more and more partners. Part of our success is, yes, like what you said earlier, there's no way that we could have been where we're at without Justin, without me, without other partners. And we ended up having about 7 partners. We kind of took the mentality, and it was also, I'll take a little bit of credit for this, but the vision also was the mentality of the book, Who Not How. finding the right hows or who's instead of trying to figure out how to do it. And so I was always saying, hey, we need to get more partners that can take care of this operations, accounting, all that stuff. So that way we're going to have to give up equity for it, and they're going to have to work for their equity. But in the long run, I think it's going to work out. It ended up working out. And now all of our partners, like we even said this at lunch yesterday, it's one of those things because some people say 7 partners. Like, do you guys have some huge conflicts and stuff? And I'm like, no, it's worked really, really well. I'm really grateful for that. And I know they are too. But with that, they've hired the right executives right when we could afford to have someone at a pretty big salary that they like to take the bull by the horns and, create their own department and treat it like their own. And so we've had some we've had to let go of some executives that didn't work out over a 69-day period. But there's other ones that have just stepped up that you're like, wow, that you've been phenomenal. Like, thank you.
How did you you don't have to give us specific numbers, but maybe percentages on the partners? How did you structure in that earn in on equity? And then on your lower tier team members, are they all hourly? I know your executives were salary. How did that compensation structure look like?
For the partners, it was kind of like, what are you planning on doing? And your effort you're going to put in going forward type of thing. Even with this pivot, there's a conversation that us partners need to have. And we know that we need to have it as far as like, okay, who's planning on being with the pivot full time? Who's planning on just kind of laying back and almost retiring? And there's going to be different percentages based on that, right? With the executives, we just kind of wanted to go with, we tried to penny pinch a little bit at the very beginning because we didn't have a lot of money coming in at the time.
Right.
Then once we had the income and we had the capital coming in, the revenue, we then wanted to do it based on the market and then also based on the interviews saying, hey, this person's phenomenal. Let's pay them a little bit more than what market is right now to make sure we can get them in. And sure enough, we did.
Yeah. So did they get equity day one, your partners, or did they have to, was it kind of a earn in on that equity?
They got it day one.
Day one. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you fucked up, they still got the equity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we had success with it. I think with new businesses, I'm going to look at, I'll be doing a little different myself. I think a lot of them would too. With other businesses they're planning on being in after this is, because there's some things that we learned with this. I think, with earning your equity as you go, I think there's a big component of that for sure.
Yeah. And then your lower tier team members, they were hired in hourly, the ones that are actually working the computers.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So our and Kevin and I have talked about this in the past with Justin. Our business is like Henry Ford's conveyor belt. Is the same person is putting on tires every day, right? So we have 21 different departments, and so that one person in that one department knows exactly what they're doing. It just goes from step 1 or step A to step Z, throughout the process. And so then it's just like, hey, right when we see a kink in the process, Justin's really good at saying, where's this kink? Oh, it's letter F. We got to go right into that department and find out how we can better make that letter F, flow with all the rest.
Dad.
Josh, I love how you did the visionary because, you and Justin could have had 18 employees, still did really well, kept all the equity, but it would have been so much smaller. You would have never been able to handle this. So that was like really forward thinking. And the second part is what's the new thing that's coming that's going to be unveiled in the summer?
So the big thing right now that's came out is AI, right? So there's a gentleman that it'll be official real soon, like within a week or two. But basically he's been doing AI for several years, government stuff, and we're bringing him on with a big team of senior developers. Wow. And we're going to make it so like it's gonna be almost like a sales AI that we can link it into someone's QuickBooks account and see like, oh, you have health insurance or you have major medical. Because major medical, there's a program out there that is newfound money, go into the whole business, and they don't have to pay anything, for it. But it's like one of those things is we've known about this for 30 years, 40 years. There's a lot of government programs out there, but it takes so much red tape to fill it out, to do all this, to get $5,000, and you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm not even worried about that. First time home buyer, whatever it is. It's like, there's all these programs out there per se for business owners and stuff like that. Well, this program's been around since Obamacare. It's a lot of paperwork, but this company's automated it. And so what we do is we'd sync in with someone's QuickBooks or whatever to find out how many employees they have. And then it automatically tells us what other companies that we can send them to that actually can save them money without us even touching anything on their bottom line. So
incredible.
We want to make it so. One example Justin and I use, there's two examples, but one we use all the time is Credit Karma. There's a lot of companies that I'll get things on my email and I'll unsubscribe to. Credit Karma is that one that there's been a couple times I'm like, maybe I should just unsubscribe to this. You know what? No, I'm going to give it another month. And I'll give it another month. And they continue to add value. For now, I think I've been subscribed with them for 10 years. And sometimes I'll log in and then I'll see all these different products, from getting a new credit card to consolidate my bills, whatever it is. We want to be that, but we also don't want to be a buffet. We don't want to have this big buffet of products and then they're like, I'm so confused. I don't even know if I want to go to the buffet anymore. So we want to have 2 or 3, maybe 4 main low-hanging fruit products that gets them in the door, and then we're going to add value for many, many years. So, because the thing about ERC is it's great. It's been great money for a lot of people, but it is one time. Mm-hmm. This is going to be residual money for 10, 20 years. So it'll be big. I'm excited for it.
That's incredible. I don't think people realize how big numbers Josh is doing.
Dude, every time we have a conversation, I have a new respect for you and what you have going on, because you really do think out of the box. It's a talent. Guys. It's a gift.
It's incredible. Josh, I know that you are super, and I want to respect your time. I really appreciate you coming on. This was great stuff.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
We put a link in there, so if somebody wants to be an affiliate, they can get involved in that. And then Blue Collar Guys, the ERC is absolutely real. He's gotten hundreds of millions at this point, probably, right?
We just surpassed 8 billion yesterday, and
oh my God,
48,000 businesses. We're more excited about the 48,000 businesses. That's actually the number we concentrate on, because there's a few ERC companies that they don't want to touch anything less than 5 employees, or anything more than 5. That's the only thing they'll touch. And the best testimonials I have are ones that have 2, 3, 4 employees. Yeah. That this money, 30,000, 40,000, was a huge impact to their business.
Life changing.
So that'd be dumb for us not. So we want to leave this with 100,000 businesses, and I think we're going to hit it.
That's awesome, man.
Incredible. Josh, thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care. Thanks again. Bye.